Welcome to Transformative Principal. This is episode 13. I'm interviewing Sharyle Karren today. If you are listening to this, you probably already know how to get it, but if you just saw a link and downloaded it, please go to transformativeprincipal.com. Please subscribe. You can also follow me on Twitter or Facebook. On Twitter, it is TRNFRM Principal for Transformative Principal. And on Facebook, it is facebook.com/Transformative Principal. You can also listen to this show on Stitcher Radio. There's a link to the show note in the show notes for the Stitcher Radio website. So just go to Stitcher Radio and search for Transformative Principal or search for Jethro Jones. That's me. I'm your host. This interview today with Sharyle Karren is awesome. Sharyle has been a principal for over 20 years in our district here in Utah, and she is one of the great ones. For the last 8 years or so, she's had a new intern or assistant principal every single year, and so she has learned how to train them, and she's going to talk a little bit about that, but what she is really good at is building and establishing relationships with her community. She is one of the best in the district at that, and she can rally her community and get them to do some amazing things. So first we're going to learn about how she establishes that, and then next week we're going to learn more about some of the specific things that she has done. I think you're really going to enjoy this. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. Have you ever felt like you were constantly interrupted by email notifications? Have you ever forgotten to follow up with someone you asked to complete a task and it turned into a minor emergency because it wasn't done? I sure have. What I use to fix that is called SaneBox. This last week, I received over 400 emails, and 1/4 of those did not interrupt me. SaneBox takes your emails and makes sure that only the emails that you need to see are seen during the day. Then, at the end of the day, I get an email that says what I have missed, and most days I can just mark those emails as read. But my favorite part of SaneBox is making sure that I remember to follow up with someone. I just BCC 1 week at sanebox.com, and I'm automatically reminded to connect with that person again if they haven't gotten back to me. It's amazing, and it makes me much more productive and helps me remember things that I might otherwise forget. Go to bit.ly/saneprincipal, that's SanePrincipal, to sign up for a free trial for SaneBox.
So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your history as a principal,
Okay.
how long you've been at your current school, and a little bit about your current school, and then we'll start talking about some of the specifics.
Okay, perfect. I have been a principal for 22 years. This is my 22nd year.
Wow, I didn't know it was that long. That's great.
Or an administrator. So I was a vice principal for 3 years at Hillcrest and Brighton High Schools, and I loved those jobs. And when I went to get my master's degree, I really wanted to work in the district office in curriculum, which I have never done. And I really did not want to be a principal. I had no aspirations to do that. I wanted to work in curriculum. That was my area that I was really interested in, and particularly in gifted education. And so I got my master's degree, and I went through the LPP program. And so I was assigned at Riverton Elementary, and Riverton Elementary, the new at Riverton, was at the old Riverton Elementary, and it was with Bonnie Dahl, and she made them promise that for my third placement that they would send me back to Riverton to help her move to the new school.
Oh, cool.
And so I was sent to Brighton High School to do my second internship at Brighton. And while I was at Brighton, someone was pulled out of Hillcrest High School to go into the district office. And so they pulled me for my third internship to Hillcrest High School to be a vice principal there.
Wow.
And I stayed there for 3 years. And at the end of that, I went back to Brighton High School for a semester. In the middle of the year, Dory Strauss became very ill with a pregnancy of her son, who is now 17 years old. And so they pulled me out of Hillcrest right at the end of maybe like in February or something, January, February, to go to Draper Elementary.
Wow.
So that was my first elementary school, and it was a year-round school. I'd never, ever been in a year-round school, or my children or anything. And so it was just a huge shock to go from a high school to a year-round elementary school. And it was a huge school. They had just had a boundary change, which is huge, you know that. And everyone was mad, and you know, they were mad at Dory. It was her first year there, and they were mad at everyone. And I just went, oh, God, what a great assignment. So I went there with a smile on my face. And my husband had just passed away like 4 months before.
Wow.
So it was pretty traumatic for me to be taken from my friends and kind of my support group and to go and be the lone person in an elementary with people I didn't even know. And it was kind of far away from even where I lived. So it was a little traumatic, but, you know, it turned out to be a great experience for me. I loved it there and loved the teachers, loved the parents, and, you know, just really was a great experience. And I would say things like, well, I need to talk to Mrs. So-and-so. Where is she? I can't find her. And the secretary would say, she's off track. Oh my gosh, off track. I forgot there's off track. And so it was just a good experience for me. I loved it. Dory had her baby, got well, and they gave us the choice. They said, you know, you can stay there and be with Dory till the end of the year, or we'll move you somewhere else. And I felt like if Dory was going to come and reclaim the school, that she needed to come back, because everyone loved me. I loved them. And I didn't want Dory to come and be a third wheel, you know, after being gone her first year.
Right.
So I said, I really think she needs to come back and dig in. And everyone, you know, got to know Dory and ended up loving her and thinking she was great. And so I was sent to Brighton High School for the end of the year to help them through graduation, because some of that principal had been taken to the district office and a new principal put in, one of the vice principals, and there was one vice principal and one principal, and they'd had 4 vice principals. So I sent back to Brighton because I knew Brighton, and they said, just get them through graduation and we'll give you another assignment for next year. So, which was great. I got to see my own son graduate and hand him his diploma, and that was really fun. And when I was there a couple of years before, when I was an intern, I got to see my daughter graduate and hand her diploma. So it was perfect. And so loved Brighton and loved Hillcrest. Those were just the best jobs I've ever had, and just loved it. And so then I was assigned to East Sandy Elementary, and I thought I was sent to heaven. That was just so awesome. And
I'm sensing a familiar theme.
Yeah.
So far.
What? Enjoying it? Yeah,
that
I
you
did.
Enjoy it.
I loved it. I love my job now. I have just absolutely loved being a principal. It's just been. I've been happy every minute of my job. I've just loved it. So I was sent there, and I took over from Terry Gotai, who was just a phenomenal principal. So it was just like piece of cake, just walked right in, and she had everything organized. And I went, hi, awesome, tell me what to do, and I'll get on the ship and let's all sail together. And she just had done a really great job. And then I was only there for 2 years and sent to Riverside Elementary, and that was hard. That was really, really hard. And I was there for 5 years. And finally, after 5 years, I said, I have done my dues. I need a new assignment. And And it was a great school. It was very difficult. It had some really unique problems there. And, there was huge challenges there for me.
What were some of the problems that were unique? And, you don't have to say anything that would, hurt anybody's feelings.
Yeah. Just, previous, the way the school had been run and, bookkeeping and, those kinds of things, what was going on in the classrooms. I went into first grade to see how they were doing right at the beginning of school, and the first grade teachers were all in a room having donuts and hot chocolate because that's what they did every morning, and they gave their kids a worksheet for the first hour, and after I picked myself up off the floor, I rolled my sleeves up and got busy. And not to everybody's happiness, but to many people's happiness. So it's surprising how many people get on board when you roll your sleeves up and say, we got to get busy and we got to get to work. We have things to do here. So, so that was, that was a up and down roller coaster ride, and it was difficult. And the community was a little bit difficult at times. But, it was a good experience for me. And I had a lot of people that I loved working with. I don't know if you remember Dr. Terry Ellis. He's passed away. He was just a phenomenal school psychologist. And so I've had the privilege of working with some really outstanding people, and it was great. So after that, they sent me to Altera Elementary. And I went, holy moly, I'm sure I'm in heaven now. That was just such a great assignment, and loved it. And it was just, loved everyone there. And it was a great school and wonderful community. So just, I was just like, yeah, just leave me here. So 2 years I was there, and they said, how would you like to open up a new school? And I said, I would love that. Oh my gosh, what was I thinking? That was hard. And, but I have loved it here. They pulled me out of Altera in April, and I had until July 1st to open up Willow Springs Elementary. I had to buy everything that was not nailed down in the school, hire all the teachers, and organize everything in the school. And that was a phenomenal job, but it was fun. I've never worked so hard and so long in all my life, but it was just an experience that you can't replace. I loved it.
And how long ago was that?
8 years. This is my 8th year here.
Wow.
Yeah, and I've loved every minute of it. I love this community, and when this school was built, it was built in the middle of a farm. There was nothing around here. And I was pretty nervous because I'd been at Draper Elementary before.
Right.
And I knew that those people, there were Draperites and then there were foreigners.
Right.
And I knew that a school in the middle of a farm was a foreigner.
Uh-huh.
So I knew I had to get busy and endear myself and the school to the community and really dig those roots in. So right off, I had a luncheon, invited the mayor, the police chief, the fire chief, all of the officials from the community, the Chamber of Commerce, the councilmen, had them all come over, the Draper History, the art group, and I went to all of their places and visited them personally, asked them for a tour, asked them to tell me what their mission was and what they were doing, how we could connect with them, what we could do to be their partners in the community, and really dug my roots into the community.
While you were buying everything.
While I was buying everything.
Hiring all the teachers, all the support staff.
But I knew that wasn't going to mean anything if I didn't root myself in the community right away. Mm-hmm. So that has been worth it, because I have been an endeared person to all of the community. If I want anything in this community, I can go to anyone and they will say, oh yeah, she's Mrs. Karren, we'll let her. We want to do that for her.
That's really neat.
So,
did any of the students or families from when you were at Draper remember you, or did you?
Oh yes,
was there any connection to them still?
Yeah.
So they knew that you weren't.
So these were all Draper, but this is all new. I mean, these people didn't go to Draper Elementary because these were all new houses here, and so we were in the middle of a farm, and there wasn't even a street on Lone Rock Drive. That was farmland all over there. So all of those houses over there behind me were all, that was all farm. There were no houses around. Mm-hmm. And so, as the houses, were built, we just made sure we, pulled people in and told them what a great community we had, and Draper was awesome and great place to be. And so we did a lot of, community building right off the bat, and that has served well to do that. Yeah. And it's, really endeared us with the community. Mm-hmm. So,
so how did you know that you need to get your roots in deep?
Because when I went to Draper Elementary, they had just had that boundary change. And one of the things that happened to me was, trying to think of what his name is. You probably wouldn't even know him. He's passed away now. He was one of the assistant superintendents. He called and he said, this lady's really mad because her daughter's been assigned to go to Sprucewood. Mm-hmm. And she does not want to go there. So will you call her and see if you can, go to her house, go see what you can do. So I did. I went to her house, and the boundary line was 135th South. Mm-hmm. And so the south side was to Sprucewood and the north side was to Draper. Mm-hmm. So she was mad about that. And, so I went to her house. She lived in the middle of the block, so she didn't even live on the corner or anything. And, so I talked to her, and she just said, my mother went to Draper, my grandpa went to Draper, everyone's ever gone to Draper, I went to Draper, and my kids are going to Draper. They are going to Draper. And Draper was a closed boundary school, so there were no permits. And I just said, well, how can we work that out, And I'm looking at her property, and she sold her farm, and they built all of these houses around her. So she was in the middle of this, and she said, I am not part of any of those people. Those people are not Draper. Like, the people that live on your farm are not Draper. No, they are not Draper. I'm Draper. They are not Draper, and I don't want my kids going to school with them. But you sold them your farmland and their lots, and you have their money, and they live next to you, and they're your neighbors, but they're not part of you. No, they are not. She was totally insistent. And I walked out with my jaw open going, wow, this is incredible. And it was story after story after story like that, of people. And I went back to her house like 3 times, and he said, you've got to figure out how you can put her house into the boundaries. I said, you go out there. I said, the only way I can do it is if I draw a line, put a circle around her house, and then keep the line going, because she lives in the middle of the street. Right. All these houses are around her. She only has one lot. She doesn't live on a farm anymore. She only lives on one lot. And if you wanted, put a circle around her house and redraw the boundaries, then you can do that. But otherwise, I can't figure out how to get her into the boundaries, because it won't work. And that was only one story. That was just, they were all lined up like that. Right. So I knew when I came back to Draper what I was looking for. And the people that lived here felt like they were Draper, and the people on South Mountain, they lived in another planet. They did not live in Draper, the Draper. Mm-hmm. They might live in Draper, but not the Draper. Mm-hmm. So I knew there was a difference between Draper and the Draper. Right. And I was coming in as a Martian on the farmland of the Draper people.
Right.
And so I knew that I had to get in there and embed myself into the community. And so I asked the Historical Society to come over and do a display in our trophy cabinet about the history of Draper and the schools in Draper. And they did. They brought all of these pictures of Park Elementary, the first bell that had been in Park Elementary, and put it in our display case. And so we made a big deal, about those. And it was great because it gave us the history of Draper.
So being a new school, you still could participate in having a history and then creating your own at the same time.
Yeah. And so our theme for the first year is we are building a legacy. And then I assigned each grade to do a walking field trip. And I asked the communities and the leader in the community to help me figure out what things they could go and see in Draper. So one grade went on a field trip to the police department. One grade did a walking field trip to the Historical Society. There's the Sorensen home. There was the old Draper Theater. There was the city building. And so they were all assigned a walking field trip.
Wow.
And so I made the community let them know that we were going to learn all we could about Draper and all of the things that Draper had to offer. So every grade went on a walking field trip. They had that assignment in the spring to do that. And that's kind of been a tradition with us. We've kept that up.
That's going.
Cool. And our field trips have changed a little bit, but we've kept doing that. So we have our Draper walking field trips in the spring. So, and it's done. We've done well with that. That's been good. So,
well, I just think it's fascinating that when I got appointed to my position, I felt like I needed to be, involved in the community, but I've never really felt a connection, right?
Yeah.
And clearly you are about as opposite of that as you can be. You not only felt a connection, but you made sure that connection was there and made sure that when the school came in, it wasn't an intrusive force. It was just another part of Draper's history.
Right.
And that's really amazing. And I don't think all principals do that. So I'm really glad that you shared that.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
And you've got a lot of students here, and you've had a lot of students here.
Yes.
And what has your enrollment been as you've been here?
It just keeps going up.
Right.
When we first opened the school, we had about 500 students.
Mm-hmm.
And we got up to probably about 1,100 students. And then, of course, with the changes and the reconfiguration, we're down to about 850. Plus, we have about 70 in our preschool.
Okay.
So we're 850 plus maybe another 70 in addition to that, that have preschool. And I keep reminding them that I know our enrollment is 850, but I'm telling you that there's these other bodies that come every day, and we have to provide a room and teachers and staff and all of that stuff. And they say, oh yeah. So I don't think people realize, what it is to have a preschool in your school, and it's awesome. I love it, and we've had it since we opened. And if they ever tried to take the preschool out of the school, the community would be up in arms because half of our students in the preschool come from the community. And the community would be up in arms because they love it.
Yeah.
And we love it too.
And I love it personally. My oldest daughter has Down syndrome, and so we've taken advantage of the preschool. And once we saw how good it was for her to be around typical students, we've put all the rest of our kids in preschool as well because we know that's good for them and it's good for those other kids too.
It is.
So.
It goes both ways.
Yep, it
goes
sure
both
does.
ways. And our parents love it, so there's always a big waiting list to get into
That's
or
great.
preschool, which is great.
Yeah. So because of your large enrollment, you've, as far as I know, always had an assistant principal or intern assistant principal?
I haven't always had an assistant principal, but I've had a lot of interns over the years. Most of the time I have an intern here and there, but this is the first year I've had a full-time intern, which is a huge relief.
Yeah.
I've always had to share my intern. The last probably 4 or 5 years I've shared, so I've had a half-time intern.
So I'd like to know how you, and those interns don't stay for multiple years, right?
No.
It's a different one all the time.
Right.
How do you train them? How do you set expectations for them? What things? Well, let's start with those two things.
Okay.
How do you train them, and how do you set expectations for them?
So I will usually get to know them and see what their talents are, because they all come with something different. Mm-hmm. Some may be really into data, and some may be, into other things, curriculum, those kinds of things. So I kind of get to know them and what their talents are and what things they're really interested in and what their goals are, what they think they could do to make a difference in the school. Mm-hmm. And then I try to give them their assignments according to what their passions are and what their talents are, because they'll perform a lot better that way. And you'll get a lot more out of them, and they'll enjoy it, and you will too. Yeah. So I try to look at that. For instance, Rex was Prescott. He was my assistant, and, he's special ed. Well, hello. Right. He was over the preschool and special ed and, those kinds of things. And it was great. And he was over the PBIS and and he was great at that. And he was good at it, and he knew what to do, and he knew, how to run it, how to handle it. And he took off with it. Marianne is really great with curriculum. Mm-hmm. And so I've had her help me, with a lot of curriculum things, and she's been highly involved in curriculum. My intern last year, Sean, came from a middle school, and he'd never been in elementary before, and he was a Spanish teacher in a middle school. So, holy cow, that was a huge learning curve for him, Yeah. So, I gave him, some different assignments so that he might be able to do that. But one of the things I do with the assistants is to tell them that if they will ask me every time they talk to a teacher or talk to a parent or have to make a decision, if they will talk to me and kind of get some opinions, by the time Christmas comes, they'll know what to do. Mm-hmm. And I tell them, if you're on the phone, say, you know what, I need to check on something. Hang on just a second. Come straight to my office or call me on the phone or whatever. We'll kind of hash it over, and I'll give them some ideas and then go back, so that I don't ever want them to say, oh, I don't know, I'll ask the principal, or let me check on that or whatever. Mm-hmm. So that then why would they call you again? If you're going to ask the principal, they might as well ask the principal themselves. So don't ever say you're going to do that. Right. So, but
just say,
but do it.
Yeah. Okay.
So even if you have kids in your office and you're not sure what to do, say, I need you to sit here and I'm going to check on something and I'll be right back. Then come straight to my office. Mm-hmm. Let's hash it over, and then you go back and handle it, so that it's you handling it, but you're not, going off your cuff with and making decisions that you're going to have to backtrack, and it'll spend a lot more time taking care of it and cleaning it up later.
Yeah.
So I tell them that if you'll, delay your decisions, it's okay. People will wait for a couple hours or a day or whatever until you get it figured out. By the time Christmas comes, I won't have to talk to you anymore about anything. And that's true. They get the gist of what you would say and have enough experience in those things. Yeah. And even with teachers, when teachers come and ask you, because teachers are good to manipulate and get what they want out of someone that they think might not know all the rules.
Yeah, for sure. So I listened to a podcast called Entree Leadership by Dave Ramsey's organization. And one of the things that they have talked about repeatedly was the idea that when you're a leader and you make a decision, if people know what decision you're going to make, then they can start to feel comfortable making their own decisions.
Right.
And because they know how you're going to respond, and that's essentially what you're doing, but in an incredibly fast time period.
Yeah.
From August to Christmas, that's a pretty quick learning curve. And if your direction is come and ask me every single time, then that is giving them a lot of opportunities to come and check on things, but then to actually implement the things that you together decide on, right?
Right.
And that, I think...
And they're implementing it, not me.
Right.
It's not my decision, and it's not me following through. It's them that's following through.
So I think giving them that opportunity for growth and learning is incredibly powerful. And from those that I do know that have been your interns or assistants, I've seen them have that confidence that they know what's going on. And I think that's really neat to see from the outside, you know.
Well, that's nice.
It's a great strategy that you're using, and I think it's really great. So going back to the idea of giving people tasks and assignments based on their strengths. So let's say you have someone who's really interested in data one year, and the next year that's not their strength, or they're not interested in it, or whatever. It's not like you just don't do data that year.
Right.
That falls to you.
It falls back on me.
Yeah. So,
everything falls back on the principal in the end.
Yeah.
And if you have someone that's at your school that's really good at something, then you'll be really double good the rest of the year, because you have someone that has that for that strength. So, yeah. But no, you don't let it go. Then it just falls back on me. Right. Or I will say to the other person, this is what you and I have got to work on together. You know, we've got to pull this off together. So,
So what are some of the things that you're really good at that you're really, that you need to be focused on, that you don't feel comfortable giving to your interns or assistants?
Well, I want to make sure that I'm always in charge of money, because that is the one thing that will get you thrown out on the street.
Right.
Number one. So money is probably one that I don't give away to anybody else. I will share with them. I'll go over budgets with them. I'll tell them why I'm doing it this way, those kinds of things, but I don't ever give away money. I do let them sign checks, and I don't give away payroll. I'm very meticulous about going through payroll and making sure that all of the hours are correct and that the payroll is correct. I'm pretty meticulous about that. So those kinds of things that might, really get you into trouble. If you make a bad decision with a parent, you don't really want to do that, but you can go back and clean it up and fix it. But if you make a bad decision with money, it's a little harder to clean that up.
Yeah, for sure.
So those are the kinds of things that I don't give away, but if they're interested, I will share those things with them and go over the budgets and go over what I've done with that. But I do my trust lands and all of that. I don't give away school community council. I have the assistant come, and I don't give away PTA because I feel like those are the things that keep me connected with what we're trying to do here.
Right. And it would totally go against what you said earlier.
Right.
If you were to give those things away because you work so hard on those and focus so much on
to make sure that we're ingrained in the community. Yeah. It's really important to me to be ingrained in the community.
Yeah. So with the assistants, what are some of the challenges that you see of training assistants and interns in general?
Well, I just think that every year they're different. You have a different person, so you've got to reconfigure, every year. They have different strengths in the things that they do. And so that, that's a challenge to make sure that I'm meeting their needs and that I'm, that they're getting what they need out of it. One thing that Mary Ann did this year, when Corner Canyon High School is right on our street here. So it's like a block and a half away. And, I said to her, I want to make sure that we're connected. And of course, Mary Bailey and I were assistant principals together at Brighton High School many years ago. Right. And when she was an intern, she was there when I was sent back from Draper Elementary. She was there as an intern. Wow. And we worked together, and I just love her. So I, made sure I went down to Mary and talked to her and said, we want to, make sure that we're connected and that we're doing things together. And so Mary Ann, they created a class for tutoring. And so the high school students sign up for elementary tutoring, and they come down here and do RTI with and the achievement coach trains them in RTI strategies, and that they work with the younger grades and we have had about, I think we had like 25 or 26 last semester. And so for this semester, I think there's like 22. Wow. And usually after about a week after the semester gets going, we pick up a few more. But that's huge for us, and it's a great class for them. The kids love it. They come down and Mary Ann tracks them and make sure that they're in the right places and that their attendance is good. And if someone doesn't have good attendance, she works with the vice principal down there to make sure that they're keeping track of the kids. And
that's great. It's
been a great experience. The kids have loved it.
That's really cool.
Teachers love it. Yeah, they have these high school kids that are brothers and sisters of the kids that are here. That's great role models and teachers for them. So that's been a really great connection that Mary Ann has done with our school, and she's put a lot of time and effort into that.
That's great.
And I think that's something that will be that'll go on forever. It's great.
Yeah, and they come on just A days or just B days?
We have two groups. Okay. So we have one group on A day and one group on B day.
So you got someone every day
every day
school to help the kids.
Yeah.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
We have something similar, the Latinos in Action from high school.
Yes.
They come to our school, and it's the same situation. It's older brothers and sisters and people that our kids can look up to.
Yeah.
And it's really been a neat experience.
And Mary Ann talked to me about it. She goes, well, how about if I work with Corner Canyon High School and get Latinos in Action going? I said, really?
Yeah.
I said, how about if we have a class?
Yeah.
That was a great interview with Sharyle Karren. I hope that you enjoyed the first part of that interview. Next week, we're going to learn more about the specific things she has done to build community and to get them motivated behind a great cause. Please follow me on Twitter, listen to this podcast and share it with your friends, and make sure you review it in iTunes and on Stitcher. Thank you so much.